grand dining hall was filled with chatter, and the delicate clinking of silverware against porcelain, as guests of the wealthy Harrington family gathered around the long polished table chandeliers, cast a golden glow across the room, and the table was lined with fine china crystal glasses and dishes fit for royalty. In the midst of this formal gathering, the family matriarch, Eleanor Harrington, sat at the head of the table, her posture upright, her pearl necklace glistening as if it were a crown. She had the kind of presence that silenced conversations. With just one glance, she had been born into wealth and raised to believe that her family was destined to stand above all others in society. The staff moved about quietly serving food and pouring wine. Among them was Maya, a young maid who had been working in the Harrington household for only a few months. She wore her crisp blue uniform, her hair neatly tied back and her eyes lowered with the quiet discipline of someone who understood her place in the strict order of the household. Yet behind those calm eyes was a young woman who carried herself with dignity. She was intelligent, thoughtful, and resilient, qualities that her uniform could not hide. As she leaned in to serve Eleanor a dish of roasted lamb, the matriarch's eyes narrowed. Something about Maya unsettled her. Perhaps it was the quiet confidence that lingered in her stance, or the way her presence seemed to draw subtle admiration from the younger guests. Eleanor's sharp voice sliced through the room like a knife. "What is this?" she demanded, her hand suddenly clutching at Maya's collar, tugging it harshly as if to expose some hidden flaw. The fabric strained under Eleanor's grip, and, in an instant, the dining hall fell silent, all eyes fixed on the shocking scene. Gasps rippled around the table as Eleanor's fingers pulled hard at Maya's uniform. The seam tore slightly, and the young maid froze, her breath catching in her chest. Though she felt humiliation burning her cheeks, she stood firm, her eyes locking with Eleanor's fury. "What do you think you're doing?" Eleanor spat, her voice shaking with indignation. "Do you think you belong here? Do you think you can stand before this family with your head held high?" Maya swallowed hard, her hands gripping the edge of the tray she was holding. But before she could answer, a deep voice cut through the silence. "Mother, stop." Everyone turned to see Alexander Harrington, the billionaire, hair-seated halfway down the table, rising from his chair. His towering figure commanded the room. His jaw was tight, his eyes burning with a mix of anger and disbelief. Eleanor froze momentarily, her grip still clinging to the torn uniform. Alexander's tone grew sharper. "Release her now." The entire hall held its breath. Eleanor's face flushed with both embarrassment and stubborn pride. She slowly released her grip on Maya's uniform, but her voice remained icy. "Alexander, this girl is not fit to serve us," she hissed, her words dripping with disdain. "She carries herself like she is equal to us, and I will not tolerate such arrogance in my home." Maya stood in silence, fighting the tears that welled up in her eyes. She had faced prejudice before, but never so publicly. Never in front of so many strangers who watched her like she was a spectacle. She could feel their gazes piercing into her soul, yet she refused to let her composure break. Alexander stepped forward, his hands clenched into fists on the table. His voice rang out louder and stronger than anyone expected. "Mother, you are out of line." The shock on the guests' faces deepened. No one dared to move. Alexander had always been known as composed and diplomatic, but tonight something inside him snapped. He turned his gaze toward Maya, and then back to his mother. "This woman is not just a maid, she is a human being. She is worthy of respect. She is worthy of dignity, and I will not allow you or anyone else to strip her of that." The room was still, the silence louder than thunder. Eleanor blinked, taken aback at her son's rebellion. Alexander's eyes burned into her. "You think that by tearing her uniform you can tear her spirit. But you are wrong. You think that wealth makes us better than others, but it only shows us what we truly value. And tonight you have shown me everything. I will not be silent while you disgrace someone who has done nothing but serve us with honesty and grace." Maya's lips parted, slightly stunned. By the force of his defense, she had never imagined anyone, especially the son of the woman who just humiliated her, would speak on her behalf. Her trembling hands tightened on the tray, but deep inside her, a warmth spread, a spark of strength ignited. by his words. Eleanor's face tightened, her pride waging war against her son's defiance. The other guests shifted uncomfortably, whispering to one another. Though no one dared speak too loudly, Alexander continued, his voice firm and unyielding. If you cannot respect her, then you cannot claim to respect me, because what you have just done dishonors this entire family, our wealth, our name, our reputation. It means nothing if it is built on cruelty. The young billionaire's words shocked everyone. In the room, some stared in awe. Others looked away, embarrassed by the matriarch's behavior. Maya finally found her voice, her tone quiet yet steady. "Thank you, sir," she whispered, her eyes shining with restrained emotion. Alexander turned to her, his voice softening. "You don't need to thank me, Maya. You deserve this respect from the start." The moment was a turning point. Eleanor's grip on the household had always been absolute, but now her authority had been shattered in front of everyone. The guests who once admired her elegance now looked upon her with judgment. Her son's words echoing in their minds, the weight of silence pressed heavily, until finally Eleanor sank back into her chair, her face pale with humiliation. Maya straightened her shoulders and stepped back, her dignity restored by the unexpected defense of the very man she had once only seen from a distance. Alexander sat down again, his eyes scanning the room, challenging anyone to speak against what he had just said. But no one did, not a single voice dared to rise against him. The dinner continued, but the air had shifted. Laughter and chatter no longer flowed easily. Every bite of food seemed heavy with the memory of what had just unfolded. Maya quietly resumed her duties, though now every step she took carried a quiet pride. No longer did she bow her head in submission. Instead, she walked with a new grace, knowing that in this house she had found an unlikely ally. Later that night, as the guests departed, whispers spread through the city's elite circles about the shocking scene at the Harrington mansion. The story of the matriarch's cruelty and the billionaire heir's powerful defense of his maid traveled swiftly. Some condemned Eleanor, others admired Alexander's courage, but one thing was certain: the household would never be the same. Maya, in her small room at the servants' quarters, sat on her bed, reflecting on the night. She traced her fingers over the torn seam of her uniform, a mark of humiliation turned into a symbol of resilience. She knew her life would not change overnight. Yet something had shifted deep within her. She had been seen, she had been defended, and she had been valued in a way that no title or fortune could ever measure. As for Alexander, he sat in his study, staring at the fire burning in the hearth. His mother's face haunted him, but so did the image of Maya, standing firm in the face of cruelty. He knew then that wealth and power meant nothing if he could not use them to protect those who could not protect themselves. And from that night forward, he vowed to be a different kind of Harrington, one who would build his legacy not on the fear his family commanded, but on the respect he gave to others. And so the story of that fateful dinner lived on, not as a tale of wealth or power, but as a lesson in dignity, compassion, and the shocking truth that sometimes the greatest courage is found not in defending yourself, but in standing up for another.